we're off. Okay, so here we go again. This is Thursday's class, and once again we're reading the Literary Hub article about Robert Louis Stevenson. So this is the last day of the week that we have planned to read this article. Okay, and so we'll go over to the other side. In this painting here, I think he's smoking a cigarette, but if this is the mid-Victorian time, they didn't really have cigarettes back then. So I'm not quite sure what he's doing. I suppose it could be a pencil. Any ideas what he's doing with that white thing in his fingers? There's no paper for him to write on, so I can't see him writing. Anyone have any ideas?
Mm, you
Well,
are you sure
Mm.
people didn't smoke cigarettes at Victorian
Well,
time?
British people didn't. We sort of found the British sort of found cigarettes like that when we went into the First World War. And we sort of mixed in with a lot of European people, and there they had cigarettes, and then we sort of brought them back after sort of like 1914 and thereabouts, roughly about
mm,
that sort of time. And I think he was dead by
mm,
the end of the Victorian period, this guy. So,
mm.
well,
Maybe it is a posthumous portrait,
true, yeah,
maybe,
yeah,
and maybe an artist imagine
mm,
that he was smoking in that stance,
maybe,
and so because that makes him more
mm,
suitable for that period. You know that they use to
mm,
smoke to
mm.
get drunk, artists in
Yes,
general,
enjoy
and
themselves, yes,
yeah, and that from
experience things, yes.
yeah.
Often it's said that a cigarette makes people look more sophisticated. Sort
Mm,
of raises the level of how they appear in people's eyes. Okay.
hmm
In their minds, perhaps as well. Okay, let's go over to the article then, and we'll get going. So we read this bit on Monday, and a few pages down, a few sort of sections down, or screenfuls we read as well. So what I'll do is, as a way of introduction, I'll read this to you, and then maybe a sort of minute or two chat explaining it if it's not clear. Hopefully it's clear. So the whole thing was written by Trenton B. Olsen about exactly a week ago, it would seem. Okay, so here we go. So let me read this to you then. So, on summer break from his university studies, a young Robert Louis Stevenson worked late into the night. He apprenticed in his family's lighthouse engineering business, but had no interest in the trade. Instead, he had made his own private determination to be an author and spent his nights writing a novel that would never see the light of day. Sickly, ambitious, and entirely unknown, he traded sleep for writing. Outside the open window stood the celebrated towers of his family's achievements that still illuminate Scotland's coastline. If I stop there for a moment. So when it says celebrated towers that his family's achievements still illuminate Scotland's coastline. What the thing they're talking about there are lighthouses. So obviously lighthouses are along the coast, and they stop ships crashing into the rocks and sinking. So his family is famous. Even to this day, people know the Stevenson, back 100 or 200 years ago, were well known for building lighthouses. But as it says, he was in no way interested. So and it says he apprenticed in his family's lighthousing engineering business. If you're an apprentice, it means you're learning the trade. You're starting off as a young person normally, and you're learning how to do it. So designing and building them, I guess. So when it says sickly, that simply means he was ill very often. So he's quite young at this point, it seems. The story starts out when he's quite young, I guess. Perhaps not a teenager, but maybe older. It doesn't really mention his age here, but I'm sort of guessing about early 20s, I would imagine. But when it says he's sickly, it just means he got ill very often. And in the next section, it will mention what his illness is. It's just down here. Okay, so let's carry on then. So, but looking out into the darkness, so it just carries on from the previous bit here. So, but looking out into the darkness, he saw only the haunting prospect of his own early death, and tried to pen something that would outlive him. Suffering from life-threatening pulmonary illness, Stevenson toiled to leave a memory behind him, in a monument of words. As the night wore on, moths came thick to the candles and fell dead on his paper until he went to bed raging that he could die tomorrow with his great work unfinished. So that's slightly sort of comical in a way. So he's raging. In other words, he's furious about the fact that he hasn't finished the thing he was writing, and he could, to say he would die, but he might die tomorrow because he has this illness that we just mentioned, pulmonary illness. Now, because I read this back on Monday or whenever it was, I know that the pulmonary illness is tuberculosis, which we also call TB, just for sure. And people don't really suffer from TB now because we have a cure, but back then they didn't. It's fairly well written, I think. I like how it says he wants to write something so that his work, so he becomes known after he dies, and he expects to die soon. And his monument, which is quite interesting because his family is building lighthouses, which are kind of like monuments as well. They're still around today. But his monument won't be a physical or so much of a physical one, it'll be a written one. Okay, so I'll read the next section again, and then I think we'll jump on to the bits that you're going to read if I can find those bits. Okay, so during this time, Stevenson liked to mope around graveyards where he went specifically to be unhappy. More fruitfully, he began writing essays, making a name for himself in non-fiction, long before his famous novels. He grappled with the art of living and dying on the page. At the point of physical and mental breakdown at 23, he was sent by doctor's orders to the French Riviera. As recounted in his early essay, Ordered South, there he experienced the beautiful setting as if touching things with muffled hands and seeing them through a veil. The young invalid was not perhaps the young invalid was not perhaps yet dying, but hardly living either. At his low point, weaned from the passion of life, he waited for death to come quietly and fitly. We don't really say fitly in this way anymore, but if something's fitting, it's appropriate, it's correct, it's at the right time, you might say, or in the right way in some sense. So if it's fitly, it means it's the correct thing to happen. It's in its right moment. Here it's really referring to his death coming quietly and at the right time and in an appropriate manner, I suppose. The interesting bit here might be this weaned bit. So weaned from the passion of life. So this is about him being weaned from the passion of life. So we only really often really only use weaned with children. So when a child stops taking milk and they then have solid food, you can say that they're weaned. So they've been weaned off of milk and are now taking food. You might also say that someone is weaned off of drugs, perhaps, and they're sort of just living a normal life, or weaned off of alcohol and having a normal life, or a teetotal life, or something. And again, this is in quotes, so it's obviously he's writing about himself here, or his life in some way. Does that make sense, what we've read there, those few little bits of readings? Hopefully it does.
Yes, fine.
Interesting. Okay.
Mhm.
So maybe if I haven't no you no I think Carla, you would have read this bit or someone else would have read it when you're here on Monday. But maybe is it okay if Elena reads this section here where it says in a subsequent edition published 7 years later. So this seems to be about the thing that he wrote called Ordered South. So he wrote something called Ordered South because he was ordered south to go to the French Riviera, I think, wasn't it? So is it okay if we go over to you then, Elena, to read this bit here?
Yeah,
So,
it's fine. Yes, I
okay,
can
so
speak.
you'll go.
In a subsequent edition published 7 years later, Stevenson added a surprising note to the end of Ordered South. A man who fancies himself dying will get cold comfort from the very youngful view expressed in this essay, and reversed its resigned conclusion. Through a maturation process he attributed to experience, interaction, and a great deal of reading, he came to recognize the self-pity behind his youthful haunting of the graveyard. It was himself that he saw dead, his virtues forgotten, his vague epitaph. Pity him but the more for where a man is all pride and personal aspiration. He goes through fire unsfielded. 20 years later, in the fall of 1887, Stevenson arrived in New York, a global celebrity. In the previous 4 years, he had published Treasure Island, Kidnapped, A Child's Garden of Verses, and most sensationally, Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, an adaptation of which had just premiered on Broadway. Reporters, publishers, and fans crowded Stevenson before he could get off the ship. For all his youthful longing for recognition, he found the experience of fame idiotic to the last degree. Hello?
I was a bit quiet there, was I? Okay, sorry. Good reading, I'm saying, good reading. Hello, I like that. So that last bit there, what does that mean to you? Particularly the last bit where it says idiotic to the last degree. Any idea what that means?
The high level of idiotism,
Yeah, that's it. Yes, a high level of
stupidity, and
stupidity, you might
foolishness.
say. Yes, that's it. Yes.
Uh, Tony,
Hmm.
everything has disappeared from my screen.
Oh, you got a black screen, have you? Or
Yes, white screen with just script zoom, nothing else.
how about you, Carla? Can
Yeah,
you?
yeah, I see it now. Yes, fine. It's
Okay.
back. It's back. Mhm.
I don't know why that was. Okay. Yeah, so yeah, I think you understood the bit there. Spot on. Yes. So you might say a lot. You might. So it doesn't have to be. So this, really, the saying is to the last degree. That's a bit of a saying.
Mm.
So it's a way of saying something is at an extreme, is what you're really saying. If something is at the last degree, something is at some kind of an extreme temperature, extreme violence, or something like that. It could be anything really, almost, pretty much. Also, it seems that this is 20 years after what I read. I think this little bit here appears a bit rough, but something like that. So, any questions or strange things you want to ask about here? Things you don't understand, the meanings, pronunciations, Elena?
Mhm. I'm looking through.
Yes.
Mhm. Self-pity behind his youthful haunting of the
Mm.
graveyard, haunting, this word.
Yes, so that's actually haunting.
Haunting.
So a ghost haunts the living, I suppose. Haunting.
So just kind of wandering around.
Yes, yes. So just first of all, also this word here, that's youthful. I think you said youngful. It's youthful.
Youthful.
Okay, that's it. So let me just read that chunk there again.
Um,
So behind his youthful haunting of the graveyard. Oh, that's right. So you remember the bit what I read out? He used to mope around the graveyard or graveyards at the very beginning. That's what I read that bit out. Yeah, I think even today you might find some people do that occasionally. That they're sort of a bit obsessed with death. They don't really understand about life, I guess. But here it's saying I think it's saying he realized, so he grew up in a sense, I guess, and saw that him hanging around graveyards, being obsessed with death, was childish or just self-pity. Because he has this pulmonary illness, TB, and really back in those days it was a death sentence. It meant you were going to live 10, 20, 30 years and then die. So that's why he was a bit obsessed with himself, full of self-pity. So do you know what the phrase self-pity means? Does it make sense to you?
Pity. No, it's said about himself.
Yeah, a very introspective thing, and it's a lot of people. Let's look it up really. So self-pity.
He
It's a very
reminds me,
unattractive thing, isn't it? So,
yeah, he reminds me Chekhov, it's a famous
Chekhov. Oh, really? Okay.
Russian. Yeah, he died
Was he?
because
Hmm.
of tuberculosis as well.
Hmm.
He
Well, what
had
age
the
did he
same
die then,
disease.
Chekhov?
Uh, What? Sorry?
Roughly what age did he die? Was he a young man or
Uh,
middle age or?
o- Older than Stevenson, but
Hmm.
still young.
So he still had more in him. Yeah, he's a very well-known writer, isn't he? Chekhov with his plays or whatever. So it says here, uncountable noun. Well, let's listen to them say it anyway.
Self-pity.
Self-pity, just as it says. So self-pity is a feeling of unhappiness that you have about yourself and your problems, especially when there is unnecessary or so when this is unnecessary or greatly exaggerated. So they're saying here greatly exaggerated. But of course, the other side is he is actually going to die. But the other side of it is, of course, we're all going to die. But he's going to die quite a bit younger, I suppose. Okay.
Surprisingly, Anton Chekhov died at the age of 44, the same age.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I think it was same age, roughly the
That's
same age,
amazing.
wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot that Robert Louis Stevenson died at 44. I had a vague idea it might be 41, but yes, I'm sure you're right. Wow. Yes. So I think maybe also when you said that this title of one of these things that he's written, I think it was a essay. This is the title of an essay.
Mhm.
Just this word here doesn't sound quite right, and it's the ed on the end, of course. So if I just say it for you, so if I just say the word order, I'm sure you know that word order, but put the ed on the end of it, put it into the past tense or as a command in this sense, I suppose. So ordered, ordered. Do you want to say that? Ordered.
Audit.
And
Audit.
again? Yeah, that
Audit.
sounds. Yeah, I think you
Mhm.
got it there. Yeah, I say you got it. And maybe just that word again there again, just for practice, if you can see it.
Yeah. Youthful.
Try again.
Youthful. Youthful.
Yeah, see, young has like an ng here. So this is really
Useful.
youthful.
Useful.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, youthful.
Useful.
And I can't remember. Something happened. It didn't sound. I think it was okay, but something didn't sound quite right here. Maybe it might have been the V or the re or the ed or something. I can't think what it was. If I just read this bit to you. So, and reversed, it's resigned conclusion.
Mhm.
And reversed, it's resigned conclusion. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Do you just read it out again, that bit there?
And reversed, it's resigned conclusion.
That's it. So reverse means to go backwards, to go in the other way, to change
Mhm.
direction maybe. And resign. So what does resign mean, or resigned? Resigned? How would you explain the word resigned?
To go back. Mm,
Could see, there is an idea of that going back again, but you could actually resign from your job. You can, when you leave your job, you can say that I'm resigning. I have resigned. You can say that. Um, and also, but also there's the idea of when you die, you're sort of resigning too, or at the very end of something. Let's actually copy it and put it into the dictionary to save my brain cells catching fire here.
like retired.
Yeah, there is the idea of retiring, but that could also be when you leave your job, you retire or resign. But also there's also this idea of dying too. I think too in resign, you might be resigned to dying. It's sort of if you're resigned to dying, it means you're sort of accepting your death. You're accepting the fact you're going to die, or perhaps you're in a battle or something and you're resigned to dying in this battle. You might say that or something like that. So this example sentence says, he is resigned to the noise and mess. So in this sense here, he's sort of given up perhaps fighting
I like
against.
give up, yes.
He's given up sort of
Hands
fighting
up.
against the noise and the mess, so he's resigned to it, just accepted it. This one here says, Pauline was already resigned to losing her home, which is obviously very sad. And their similar words or synonyms are stoic, patient, subdued or subdue perhaps, long suffering. That's quite good, yeah, long suffering. And they put an ly on it too, resignedly. So if I just listen to them say resignedly.
Resigned.
It's got an ly on the end of it, so that's not quite right, is it? Doesn't matter really. Okay. So if I just that example sentence says, that example sentence is, I know you don't believe me. I said resignedly.
I know you don't believe me, I said resignedly.
Yeah, so resignedly. Okay.
Definitely.
I just accept it. I've given up, kind of a thing. There's a feeling there. And so here, and reversed, it's resigned conclusion. So it's obviously when you die, there is a degree you have to give up and accept it. And I suppose that's really what it's saying here, there, isn't it? There's 4 or 5 words we just read through. Self-pity, graveyard. Anything else that you noticed there that looks a little bit odd or difficult to pronounce, or the meaning's unclear or something?
No, it's fine.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. There was somewhere where the word virtue. I know there was the word. It was the V's again. So there was some V's there. I can't quite see where the word virtue is for the life of me. I think there was a couple of V's together. There was some sort of I don't know what it was now.
Youthful.
Yeah, youthful. Yeah,
Mhm.
so this is quite tricky. So it's a TH sound next to the F, which is very similar, but it's different. And I think I think you've got it pretty much, Elena. But just remembering to not say youngful.
Mhm.
Oh, vague. There we go. So his vague epitaph. There we go. So if I just read that bit to you, maybe. So if you perhaps read that quote. So there's quote marks there, and it goes down to the bottom. If I just read that chunk again. So it was this bit here. So his virtues forgotten and the vague. So it's the V words, I think, really. But so that bit there, just once again, Elena. Thanks.
It was himself that he saw that his virtue forgotten, his vague
Mm.
epitaph. Pity him, but the more than where a man is all pride and personal aspiration, he goes through fire unfilled. Uh, un, yes.
It's just, once again that word.
Uns, Unshielded.
Yes, that's it. Yes, unshielded. That's it,
Mhm.
unshielded. So if you have a shield, you're protected. A bit of a cough there.
Mhm. Unprotected.
Yes, that's it. Yes.
Mhm.
Have a drink of water, everyone here. And that was really all I noticed, I think, really. You've got it there. Maybe there was that word there. So we had that another V word, which is slightly tricky. But that word there, so that's where my cursor is now. So this word is sensationally.
Mhm.
I think the sound didn't quite come out right, but it's pretty good anyway. But
Most sensation, sorry, sensationally.
almost. So, but can you do the whole thing in blue
Mhm.
for the moment? Just try the whole thing.
A child's garden of verses and most sensationally strange case of doctor,
Yeah,
etc.
I think that's exactly the same way you read it. So, just split up into the sort of how it's almost to the root here. So this is the original, the root word, let's say. So sensation.
Sensationally.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you got it. You've got it. Well done. And so with the verses, I can sort of hear a W creeping in. So verses. I can't quite copy exactly. So you sort of your V starts out with V, then as a W creeps in there a little bit. So aim to get one or the other if you can, I suppose. Verses. Try
Yeah.
again. Verses.
Versus.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's getting there. That's pretty good actually, I think. And once again, what's that word there?
Youthful.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, that's perfect. That is absolutely perfect. Well done. That's it. But I think that word occurred 5 or 6 times in this passage. Every time you read it out as youngful.
Yeah.
Do you wear glasses? No, often do you? Because it struck me it might be you wear glasses normally.
No, I'm a short vision, so I I can see correctly on
Okay,
the screen. Mhm.
I forgive you.
Mhm.
Well done. Okay, so any questions? Any other questions, Elena or Carlo? Anything else?
No.
Good, good. I liked your premiered. That was perfect. I thought it might trip you up a little bit, but you spot on there.
Mhm.
And of course,
Mhm.
Broadway is famous in America. What's it famous for? Anyone? What's Broadway famous?
Theaters.
Theaters. That's right. It's theater land in
Mhm.
America, or New York, isn't it? I think. Is it New York? I think it's New York. So, but in London, we sort of say theatre land. We say theatre land. There isn't really a particular. They're all in one area, roughly speaking, but I think we just refer to it as theatre land. Or maybe I do, and nobody else does. So let's scroll on then. Okay, so. And I think last time we got up to this bit here, I think it was there. So, but is it okay if you read from, well, that screen read, so from there on down, he had come seeking health rather than
Me?
publicity.
Yes.
Yeah, no, not, well, Carlo, is it Carlo's go, I
Carlos.
think?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. That's good.
Right.
How many paragraphs?
Well, as much as you can see, really,
Okay.
if that's okay.
I'm really enthusiastic tonight to read.
Right. Okay, I should just
So,
to interrupt you, you're breaking up very slightly, so your voice isn't 100% clear. Over to you. Give it a go.
okay. Okay. So, he had come seeking health rather than publicity. For nearly 3 years, he'd been too sick to leave his house on the English coast. His doctor told him that he likely wouldn't survive another winter in the British Isles. He often wrote in bed or, when he was in too much pain to manage a pen, dictated to a scribe. When the bloody cough of his lung hemorrhages kept him from speaking, he composed by singing letter by letter. But the sickness that once detached him from life had now made him greedy for experience. Making the most of brief periods of relative health, he accumulated several lifetimes' worth of adventures. He canoed through France and Belgium, backpacked across a French mountain range with a very stubborn donkey, got arrested as a suspected German spy, inadvertently started a forest fire in California, tried deep-sea diving, and crossed the globe to propose to a married woman, to name only a few. Can you scroll, Tony? Thank you.
Yes. Over to you. Yes.
Ordered north this time, Stevenson traveled with his family to Saranac Lake in the Adirondack Mountains of upstate New York, where American Lung Association founder Dr. Edward Trudeau was researching and treating tuberculosis. Despite persistent illness, Stevenson was far removed from the young invalid who felt he had outlived his own usefulness. But this time he had married and taken on stepchildren, lost his father, and grieved friends. The man who has family, friends, and honorable work to live for, Stevenson wrote, cannot timely die without defeat. Though he would always be susceptible to bouts of depression and despair, he resolved to fight illness in order to bear and forbear, help and serve, love and let himself be loved for some years longer in this rugged world.
Really good. Very, very good. I think you really brought the emotion out there very well. That's very good. How did you feel it went? What was-
So I focused much more on the rhythm.
Yes, I can hear you trying.
Yeah.
Yes, it really showed. It really showed. Very
Mhm.
good. But it is tricky. It is tricky,
Yeah.
and it's very
Okay.
easy to get it wrong. You think, oh, this should
Mm.
be the rhythm, and when you get to the end of the sentence, you suddenly realize, oh, that didn't quite work.
Yeah.
But you can't always go back. But I couldn't really spot that very, very easily. But it's quite hard, really, isn't it? And also with the square brackets and the quote marks, you're not quite sure what to expect.
Yeah.
But often you
Because
just read it through. Really, you don't sort of go. It's just sort of it's just they're sort of written it in such a way that you can just read straight through without too much of stopping and starting, despite them being square brackets and quotes, etc.
yes, because
Yeah, over
there
to
are
you. You'll go. You'll go.
sentences in the sentences, so it is quite tricky to understand the meaning. Uh, if it would be Italian, I could understand, but this is
Yes.
English, and
So a lot of the meaning's lost in that.
yeah.
That's quite
In
tricky.
Italian, we say uh, it's a Ciceronic way to write,
Oh, okay.
because
As in Caesar.
yeah, Cicerone was a Latin writer. Cicerone,
Hmm.
Cicerone in Italian. It was a Latin writer that he used to write in a very complex way.
Okay.
A phrase
Right.
in a phrase, a sentence in a sentence.
Oh, I
Too
see.
much comma, too much square brackets, too much quote
Ah,
marks. And
okay.
so, yeah.
What was that chap's name again? Cicero.
Yeah. Cicero, no. I'm writing it down on the
Cicero?
chat.
Was it Cicero? You say?
Cicerone.
Cicerone. Okay.
Cicerone.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's a Latin writer from the ancient Rome,
Okay.
and his way to write is very complex.
Okay.
Yeah, in Latin, of course.
Absolutely. Being ancient Rome, yes. I wonder if we say, I wonder if we're talking about Cicero, because we talk about Cicero as one of the great writers and communicators of ancient Rome. And the name sounds similar, but not the same. Well, that's for another chat, maybe. Okay. So I think this actually, I think even I would have trouble reading this bit here. So let me have a go too. Let me have a go. If that will help, I don't know. Well, no, let me just think about, let's just look at what you read, I think. It's just little details, really, I would say. Little details that I noticed. Just trying to think, really. It's more minor mispronunciation. I think that was there, was just came out slightly strange. So a few words like that, just that the word wasn't quite pronounced quite right, but that's not really an issue as such. It's just that because you're concentrating on one aspect, it's hard to get other aspects of it correct at the same time. I think maybe missed out the S of Isles. So when you talk about the British Isles, it's always got an S on the end of it, British Isles. Everybody knows that as a British person, so it does sound particularly odd, I think. But that's just it's just a more detail, isn't it? Really, again. So with this word here, inadvertently, do you have an idea what that means? Inadvertently.
Yeah, yeah.
Ah, can you explain it
In
in
Italian
English?
is yeah. Inadvertently is when you don't expect to happen.
Yeah, that's pretty much the meaning. Yes, but I think it's more like an
When
accident.
you yes, when you make
Mhm.
something, when you do something, and you are
Mm.
not conscious of that, you are not
Yeah,
aware
yes,
of
yes.
doing that.
That's. It
Uh,
sounds like exactly the same meaning.
uh,
Yes,
uh-huh,
you maybe doing something behind, looking forward, but behind you with your
uh-huh,
bottom, you've just knocked something over.
uh-huh.
You inadvertently
Can
did.
I give you an example?
Yes, absolutely.
I inadvertently uh, dropped down the vase when I was walking down the stairs.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah. Or I inadvertently broke a glass
Mm.
when I was moving into the room, in the room. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, that works. That works.
Uh,
That's good. That's good. Thank you. Well done. Uh, okay. Anything you should. There are some place names that I've not really heard of before. Saranac Lake. I don't. It seems to be in New York or the state of New York. And again, these mountains, Adirondack Mountains. Again, I've not heard of them really, to be honest. But where it says upstate New York. So what does upstate New York mean? I think most people know where New York is, roughly speaking. But what does upstate New York mean? What does that mean?
I don't know.
Oh, so with the phrase upstate, you're just saying, do you have any idea, Elena, what upstate means? Upstate?
Maybe it's a part of a state, maybe north part of the state, big
Well,
land.
it could actually be south. It could be north, could
South.
be south, west, or whatever. It really upstate is sort of the opposite to saying downtown. If you say downtown, you're in the middle of the city, in the central part, like the most important place. Whereas upstate means you're sort of out in the country, out in the wilds in particular. And here, of course, it's the Adirondack Mountains. So that the mountains where the woods are, it's probably difficult to move around. Probably few, if any, roads. That's what upstate means. You're in the middle of nowhere, no roads, or little or few roads. That's basically what that phrase means, or word means, I should say.
Mhm.
So it mentions here, I think for the first time, it's tuberculosis, which is a death sentence this time. Oh, thinking about it, there was this one word here. So young, that was great. But the next word, there's two ways of saying that, um, and I think you mixed them up. So I think you said young invalid. I think you said, or it sounded a bit like that. But do you know what the other way of saying it is? The correct way? So it's
Sorry,
not young.
come again,
Hmm.
Tony. Sorry.
So do you know what the word here means? So young,
Yeah,
yeah.
invalid.
What does it
Invalid.
mean?
Yeah, it is that has got special needs.
Okay.
Yeah, invalid. In Italian is the same. Invalid.
Okay.
That has
Hmm.
basic problem or mental
Physical,
problem.
yeah.
Yeah, physical. Yes,
Mhm.
physical
Special
problem.
need, yeah, special needs.
Special need. Yeah.
That's exactly what
But
we say.
it's pronounced invalid.
Yes, that's it. Yes. So it's the vowel sound here changes from which one you're saying.
Mm.
So I might have an invalid ticket to get
Mhm.
into a football match.
Mm.
That's the right pronunciation. That's invalid. But if it's a person, it's invalid. You say invalid. But we don't really say invalid now. We say what do we say, Elena? We tend not to
Vulnerable person
vulnerable
or person with special needs.
or special needs. Yes. So some people take that as a little bit of an insult, but in a way maybe because the other way of saying it is invalid. So invalid and invalid. But maybe because this was dates back from almost 200 years ago, I guess maybe they did say that then, I guess, almost certainly. So do you
Mm.
want to just practice the two ways of saying it? So here it's in invalid, so valid, lead, and invalid is the other way. Do you want to just say them both, or maybe?
Mhm. Invalid
Mhm.
and invalid.
Yeah, that's it. Invalid and invalid. That's it. You've got it. Spot on. Grieved. It's interesting here. It says so. Again, it's inside a quote. No, not a quote, is it? So this is what the writer has written about him. So that little bit there. So lost his father and grieved friends. What does that little bit there mean? Any idea? So let me read the whole section, that little section again. And do you want to think about what that bit means, Carlo? So by this time he had married and taken on stepchildren, lost his father and grieved friends. So what does that last bit mean? Lost his father and grieved friends. It might be obvious to you. I don't know.
Like he left his friends in the graveyard. They died.
Oh, but Carlo, what does Carlo think?
Ah, sorry.
Yeah. So that in this life moment, in this moment of his life,
Mm,
he got married,
hmm
taken stepchildren, so he
hmm
became responsible
mm,
of children
hmm
that was not natural, that don't
hmm
come from him,
hmm
and he lost his father, so his father passed away,
hmm
and grieved friends. So grief is dolor, pain, is
hmm
pain, grief.
hmm
Grieved friends is friends that suffer of something. I don't know if because of him or because of his illness. I,
mm,
I don't
mm,
understand.
yes.
Yeah.
Um, it isn't 100% clear, I would say, what's being
Mm.
said by those two words. But I would say, and I might be wrong, that so everything's in the past tense in this line we just read out. It's all in the past. By this time, so by this time, it's sort of looking back on things in some way.
Mm.
So everything's in the past tense. So by this time, he had past tense again. So he's married, taken on. So taken is sort of past tense, isn't it? Taken on stepchildren,
Mm.
lost his past tense, his father died, and grieved, again, that's past tense, friends. So the grieved friends bit sounds like some of his friends died. That's
Mm.
what it sounds like. And he grieved for some friends that died or disappeared, or he lost the friends, maybe, possibly.
Mm.
So some of his friends died, but it isn't 100% clear what's being said by that, and I think that's slightly poetic, being that this is the literary hub, and so they sort of pride themselves on writing. I think they're sort of being
Mhm.
especially clever with their words, I think, and they've It's quite a good way. It's nice,
Hmm.
nicely written. This is.
But you can say I grieved my friends. So I grieved my friends in sense that
Hmm.
I make my friends suffer. I made my friends
Yeah,
suffer.
it
It
could
could
sound
be.
like that. Yes,
Uh,
yes, it could be that too.
mm,
But everything's taken on is everything's stated very quickly and in the past. So he got married. Well, that's a whole chapter in a book, you'd have thought, even a whole book. Took on stepchildren. Well, it's taking on children, that's a huge responsibility. And it's all in one line. This is just one word. His father died. But you might grieve for a year over your death of your father. And so a quick mention, just in 2 words, he manages to say this idea that some of his friends died. So everything's being said very, very quickly, very, very briefly, and all in the past tense. So so yeah, it's not 100% clear, but I think this is really some of his friends died, but it's not 100% clear. So, but it could be that he he did something which made his friends grieve for him. So maybe he renounced his friendships, just as you said, or implied, Carlo, I should say. So I think there's 2 ways of looking at it, I think there. So you're right, Carlo, yes.
mm,
Oh, looking down at the next line, um, I think maybe I'm mistaken, but I think when you came to tamely, I think you said timely. I think you said
mm.
timely, but that's
Timely. Yeah,
yeah.
sorry. Maybe.
But it's just again, you're aiming more to get the rhythm, and so it's okay. It's okay. Just highlighting it, so I don't know really. Um, anything that
And what does it mean, timely?
so if something's tame, it's not wild. So you might have a tame cat, or you might have a wild
Mm.
cat. So a wild cat
Ah,
might bite you, whereas a tame cat wants to be stroked, or dog, or whatever it is.
so
Good
tame.
behave,
Mm.
obedient.
Yeah, well,
Ah,
perhaps not necessarily obedient, but tame just means they're not attacking you. So I would say tame. I mean, you could train a tame cat, I guess, or tame anything, probably, I suppose. So let's just read that little bit again, so maybe that make the whole thing clear. I'm not quite sure where to end, but I'll read roughly about there. So Stevenson wrote. So maybe I'll include the line above because that seems to because there's a comma there. That comma seems to sort of so it makes it join on to what we've just read. So I've read what we read before, then hopefully the rest of it makes some sense. So the man who has family, friends, and honourable work to live for, Stevenson wrote, cannot tamely die without defeat, though he may always be susceptible to bouts of depression. Oh, there's a full stop there. So, Stevenson, though he would always be susceptible to bouts of depression, despair, he resolved to fight illness in order to bear and forbear, help and serve, love and let himself be loved for many years longer in this rugged world. So there are lots of quotes in there. So I forgot what the question was now. Oh, tamely. So I think the point is here is so a man who has family, friends, and honourable work. So you've got something to live for. If you've got something to really live for, and of course he had children and he was married, you cannot just simply lie down tamely and die. It's not an easy thing to do. You're going to fight against it. Or you cannot do it without defeat, I suppose. If you do just lie down and you still have your life to live, then you must be defeated, I guess, in some sense. I think that's what he's saying. So I guess it's really talking around the idea that most people hopefully have a reason to live and they're sort of fighting to live and they're fighting against problems and death. They're fighting against if when we have COVID or something, we didn't hopefully just lie down, let it happen to us. We tried to find, we I don't know, drank potions to keep us well, or we went to get a vaccine shot to keep us from getting it in the first place, etc., or went to the doctor for advice. I think that's the sort of idea, around that sort of idea. Whereas if you remember before, when he was in the graveyard as a younger man, He was moping around the graveyard, sort of a bit depressed, without really any aim to live. And then he seemed to realize, then we had that bit about self-pity. He realized he was just pitying himself, which is a bit childish and immature. So he grew up, and this point here, where we just read now, he sort of realized there's a reason to live. And for him, it's his wife, presumably, and the children, and he's getting on with it. Though he still had, though he was still susceptible to bouts of depression. So we say bouts. There's only a handful of places where we use bouts, and we often say a bout of sickness or a bout of depression. I can't really think. I think we might use it for boxing matches. If you're having a boxing match, two people are boxing in a boxing ring, you would talk about them having a bout, which is a fight in that sense. And I suppose with an illness, you could say bout is a fight with illness too, or a fight with depression. So maybe it's exactly the same meaning, I guess, pretty much. Bout.
Mm.
Was there anything else there? There's probably lots there, really. So I was going to read it, wasn't I? Did you want any other questions you want me to ask or anything? Carlo or Elena, for that matter.
Maybe bear and forbear.
A little bit of a
Oh,
saying.
bear and
Bear and
forbear.
forbear.
Yeah, a little bit of a saying there.
Ah, the same.
Similar meanings, but not quite the same. Similar meanings. That's what Google throws up for us. So you can, they've missed out the E. The British people wouldn't put an E in there. So it doesn't look quite right when I look at this, but I think this, it doesn't really matter. So there's two ways, but it looks like the American and the non-American way, I would say. So bear and forbear is an expression that means to endure patiently. That's the first one, really. And the forbear bit is, and to refrain from reacting. So that's really what it means. The first bear means to endure the pain of something or the problem. If you bear something, like bear a weight or bear a problem. And the forbear means not to overreact or just to wait until things change a little bit. So that's forbear. And we don't often say forbear now. If I put an E there, I feel better with an E in there, so I don't know why. But another word we do use quite a bit is forbearance, which is just simply just a longer version of the same word with another meaning to it. Forbearance. So it has got a meaning for forbearance, which is basically the same meaning essentially. So forbearance, it says patience, self-control, restraint, tolerance down here. So his unfailing courtesy and forbearance under great provocation. So he's almost, a situation is quite difficult, but he's controlling himself and not doing something which other people might do, like lose his temper or something like that, or get angry perhaps. That's what forbearance is. Yeah, I think forbearance is more often than forbear. Well, probably about the same, I suppose. Oh, they keep spelling it without the E. Perhaps my E is wrong then. It doesn't really matter. But of course, this is American. Was it American? And it does tend to be used a bit more in law, I suppose, and in finance, I guess, that word. They don't talk about any other version of that word. Okay. So tolerance, toleration, patience, resignation. That word resignation again, or resign. That's interesting. Endurance. So it's strange how resign keeps coming up, isn't it? So that last bit is quite tricky, but the first bit is a bit easy. Do you fancy rereading this first bit again? Let me read it to you first of all, and then it's your go again, Carla, if that's okay. That bit there. So, okay, so that's hemorrhage. Are there any words here that aren't not quite sure the meaning? So hemorrhage is, we spell it with an A about there, where my cursor is. So hemorrhages. So hemorrhages is normally a flow of blood. It could be under the skin, or it could be out of the skin. So you might hemorrhage, and so you're bleeding somehow. But when you say hemorrhage, often sounds like it's internal. So some organ is bleeding inside into your body somewhere and the blood isn't coming out. So it can mean that as well. If you cut yourself, normally that's, or an abrasion, that might be where the blood comes out. And one of the big symptoms, or the classic symptoms of tuberculosis, is coughing and blood coming up when you cough. So when it says bloody cough, it means that he's coughing and he's shooting out blood. Little bit splats of blood are coming out. Perhaps a lot of blood, perhaps a little bit. Okay, so I'll read this then, and then it's your go, if that's okay, Carla. So he had he had come seeking health rather than publicity. For nearly 3 years, he had been too sick to leave his house on the English coast. His doctor told him that he likely wouldn't survive another winter in the British Isles. He often wrote in bed. Actually, this is a bit stop-starty, isn't it? So maybe read the second one. Well, I'll read this one. I'll carry on now, but maybe I'll read the second one because this one's so stoppy-starty, it's hard to get the meaning out of it. Anyway, so from here on, so he often wrote in bed, or when he was in too much pain to manage a pen, dictated to a scribe. When the bloody cough of his lung hemorrhages kept him from speaking, he composed by signing letter by letter. Let's read the second one. Maybe we should read the second one. But the sickness that once detached him from life had now made him greedy for experience. Making the most of brief periods of relative health, he accumulated several lifetimes' worth of adventures. He canoed through France and Belgium, backpacked across a French mountain range with a very stubborn donkey, got arrested as a German spy, inadvertently started a forest fire in California, tried deep-sea diving, and crossed the globe to propose to a married woman, to name only a few. Okay. Do you want to read that one there, maybe? That one looks a little bit easier, or at least I messed up the first one anyway. So that one there, is that okay, Carlo? Or
Yeah.
whichever one you want, really.
Okay. So, but the sickness that once from the beginning, he had,
You could do if you want.
okay, he had come seeking health rather than publicity. For nearly 3 years, he'd been too sick to leave his house on the English coast. His doctor told him that he likely wouldn't survive another winter in the British Isles. He often wrote in bed or when he was in too much pain to manage a pen, dictated to a scribe. When the bloody cough of his lung hemorrhages kept him from speaking, he composed by signing letter by letter. But the sickness that once detached him from life had now made him greedy for experience. Making the most of brief periods of relative health, he accumulated several lifetimes' worth of adventures. He canoed through France and Belgium, backpacked across a French mountain range with a very stubborn donkey, got arrested as a suspected German spy, inadvertently start a forest fire in California, tried deep-sea diving, and crossed the globe to propose to a married woman, to name only a few.
Yes, really good. Very good. Very
Yeah.
good. So there were certain words you really emphasized, and I like how
Yeah.
you emphasized that one there, because that's the surprising word or the surprising thing. I suppose starting a forest fire, that's quite shocking, isn't it? Being arrested as a spy,
Mm.
and the surprising word here is the married. So the person's already married, he's trying to marry them. I think that's illegal, isn't it?
Mm.
Well, I guess he didn't know, or perhaps they were going to get divorced, something, who knows.
Yeah, maybe.
That's good. Yeah, that's nice. Nicely read. That's very good.
Mm.
And it is tricky to work out where to give the emphasis. And you are getting it. You're putting the emphasis on certain words. That's fantastic.
Mm. Thanks.
So yeah, so is the key word you're trying to pick out, and sometimes we get it wrong, but that's okay. I think you said a very stubborn donkey, and I think that is the funny. That's a funny aspect in this one here. That this one's laughable. The next one is shocking with the spy, etc. Yeah, it's interesting, that one. Very good. And maybe that line there. So that word. So do you know the meaning of that word there? So
Yeah.
oh yeah.
He canoed, so he was paddling
That's it. Yes, in a little
in
boat. That's it.
that kind of boat that
A
is a
particular.
canoe, yeah. A particular.
That's it. Yes. So they're putting a D on the end of it, so make it into the verb sort of thing, or in the past tense or whatever it is. It's in the past tense, isn't it, as well, I suppose. So but just the pronunciation just slightly out. So the boat is called a canoe. Canoe.
Canoe.
That's it. You've got it. Yeah. And so
Hmm.
canoed. That's it. Canoed.
So he went through river from France to Belgium.
Yeah. It seems to be amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
But he
Paddling.
canoed. That's it. Paddling in a canoe. That's it. Let's quick look at the canoe.
Canoe. How he could
He-
if he was deeply sick.
Well,
Mm,
I guess he waited till he was better, or not quite, not too bad, and got on with
mm.
it. But he still died at 44, didn't he? So not
Maybe
not as
got
if he
maybe he got some kind of drugs or medicine to stay
perhaps.
better. Maybe,
But I think
perhaps.
I think the I think it's one of those illnesses where you have periods where you're better than other periods when you're worse.
Mm,
Your body sort of fights against it as good as it can, but it's a losing battle. And there were several sicknesses and illnesses like that in Victorian
mm,
times where you had
Mhm.
good weeks, good months or whatever, or good years perhaps even,
Yeah,
and then you'd come down with it. You'd be
the
holed
cure
up.
wasn't exist that time. It's only antibiotics
That's it, yes.
you invited.
Yeah. It's only antibiotics that
Can
sort of treat it
help
now,
with
isn't
this
it, really?
disease. Mhm.
And I think but often it's about health, just general health. If you're in good health, you probably won't get it. But if you're under lots of stress, I've been told, under lots of stress, and you're perhaps not getting enough sleep, and you're not eating very well, perhaps you're not getting quite the right nutrition, perhaps you're not eating very many green vegetables, but eating lots of protein, perhaps, or something, then you're more susceptible to getting tuberculosis. But even if you do get it, there is at the moment at least an antibiotic cure. Yeah, good reading, well done. So, any other questions from anybody about this little bit here, or Carla or Elena?
Sorry, come again, Tony?
Any other questions or anything else?
No, no, no.
So when it says signing letter by letter, what does that little bit there mean?
Writing letter by letter.
Well, it did say here, so when he was in too much pain to manage a pen, it
Mm-hmm.
would it would it would dictate to a scribe. So he would say the words to a
Mm,
scribe, and the person would write it down. But then he would have the cough, the bloody cough, and he couldn't speak. So he can't speak.
mm,
So no, this is the very last one. It's not about speaking or writing.
ah.
It's some other way. So what is
Ah,
this? What's other way is this?
yeah, it's a metaphoric way to compose, to finish his work.
Metaphoric. That's it. That's a good way of
Yeah.
putting it. Yes, metaphoric. Um, but yeah, so signing is giving signs with your hands, fingers, or something.
Yeah.
Perhaps you do a letter A with his fingers, maybe, or perhaps one
Mm,
finger meant the first letter of the alphabet, two meant the second letter of the alphabet,
mm.
Mm.
three meant the C. Who knows? We don't know.
Signing.
Yeah. So it really makes you really quite extraordinary. Here, someone is writing like that. That just blows my mind a little bit. And then somehow he gets well again. His health comes back. His health is restored, and he carries on with his donkey across the whatever it was happened. I don't know. Okay. But it was often the case. He did say that his doctor said he wouldn't live another winter if he stayed in the British Isles, because we have such a cold and damp climate. It seems like the worst sort of climate, or at least that's what they thought in those days for
Mm.
that for TB or tuberculosis, and I think that is true. I knew a lady actually. She's dead now. She died in her 80s a few years back, and she had something done to her, which is what they could do at that time. They would collapse a lung. So obviously we have two lungs, one each side, and if one lung might have tuberculosis and the other one might not have it, and so they would give the ill lung a rest. They would set it up so that you wouldn't breathe using that one lung. So that the phrase was they would collapse that lung,
Mm.
and in doing that, it would somehow allow it to get better. And that would happen in the sanatorium. And I know that little bit because the word sanatorium came up. Oh, it was down here somewhere, I think, sanatorium. So a sanatorium, there were 100 years ago, there were lots of sanatoria. I suppose it's sanatoria for plural, but it might be sanatoriums. I don't know, to be honest. And they were almost exclusively, or very often, they were for tuberculosis sufferers, people with TB. Very, very common. Often they were in warm places with lots of fresh air and lots of sunlight. Oh, here we go. Yes, so sanatorium. I know we read it somewhere. There we go. So he went to a sanatorium at some point, so which is a place specially set aside to help people with this disease, but it's just sort of a resort. They might have some treatments, but they don't really help a great deal. It's really sort of it's basically, I think it's more a case of rest. It seems like rest seems to be the best way to get better from back in those days.
Mm.
Let's hope we
Okay.
don't go back there. So anything you want to talk about or chat around?
I have to go in 5
Okay,
minutes.
that's great.
In
Mhm.
5
That's
minutes,
okay.
yeah.
Well, we might as well wind it up then. So thanks very much for coming.
Yeah, so can I leave our evening as well?
Yeah, of course, absolutely. I
But
thought,
I have 5 minutes, Tony.
no,
Mm.
If you
I'm not.
want, huh? If you
Yeah,
want chat,
well,
if you want
yeah,
to
yeah.
chat with about anything, about
So, Tony, will we keep
Hmm.
going to read this article next time?
Is it interesting?
Yeah, interesting. This life story.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll try it next week too then.
Mhm.
Perhaps on the Thursday when you're here. Is that okay? Unless you come on a Monday or something. Are you coming next Monday or something,
yeah.
Elena?
Yeah, Monday, yeah, it's fine. Monday.
Okay, if you're here Monday, we'll read it. Otherwise, might read something else. Okay, so okay. I'll try to work out where we got up to, and then we'll carry on from there.
Okay,
I think we got up to there, didn't we? To name a few. That's right. And then then we carry on from here. So previously it said he was ordered south because there's better weather in the south, but here it says ordered north there. So they will carry on from that point, I think. Right. Okay. So we'll leave it there then.
Yeah.
We'll call it a day. So thanks again, and see you next
Okay,
week.
thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
No.
Bye bye.